WHGE 95.3 FM coming up, the Open Eye. Couldn't get the alarm to go off. Jeez. Yeah, all right, I'm here now, y'all. Good show for me. All right. Let's get them going here. Those of us that indulge in or commit intellectual violence don't do so for the pleasure of mental masturbation or ego diddling. We do so because the chains of oppression on our people's minds are deep and difficult to remove. Good morning, my children of the sun. Welcome to the Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm your host, Third Eye Optometrist, Patrice Gibbs, here to get that eye open. Yes, indeed. As we always start off, every generation has its purpose. Ours is to reveal the truth and reverse the brainwashing. Yeah, buddy, if you've been listening to the Open Eye, whoa, what's that? Okay. You know, I'm going to get my disclaimer out the way, then I'm going to get it started. Let me see, where is that at? Okay. All right, I got you, baby. All right. The views and opinions expressed on the Open Eye are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors, and do not reflect the policy or position of WHGE 95.3 FM nor our sponsor, the Delaware Center for Homeless Vets. Any content provided by Open Eye's hosts, guests, or contributors are theirs and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, company, or individual. All right. Let's get them started. Okay. I hear on Open Eye. You often hear my opening theme song with the words, those of us that indulge in intellectual violence. All right. Let me tell you about that. Those of us who indulge in, commit intellectual violence, don't do it for the cheap thrill of mental masturbation. It's basically how I open the show. That's part of the theme song. And we're not interested in that little buzz of psychological ego diddling. We ain't here to flex minds for applause. We're here to free them. That's our key. See, removing the chains of oppression ain't a soft process. It's not tidy. It's not tea and conversation. It's not the panel discussion on Sunday morning TV. Liberation is raw. Liberation is confrontation. Liberation is truth colliding with lies like thunder breaking glass. We don't engage in this fight to sound intelligent. We do it to pierce ignorance, to stab at the system's soft spots, to strike the myths that keep us blind and bound. Our words, they ain't for decoration. They ain't for decoration. They're weapons, forged in the furnace of centuries of deceit, tempered by the tongues of ancestors who spoke freedom before they ever tasted it. So understand, every sharp sentence is rebellion. Every unapologetic thought is revolution. We commit intellectual violence because they committed historical, spiritual, and cultural violence first. Wake up. They rewrote our past, distorted our image, colonized our minds, and told us to thank them for the education. No. We're here to reclaim the narrative. We're here to dismantle the lie. We're here to speak the kind of truth that shakes foundations, that rattles institutions, that resurrects consciousness. So don't call it arrogance when we speak loud. Don't call it anger when we speak truth. Call it what it is, resistance. Call it what it must be, liberation. Because freedom never came from silence. And thinking freely in a world built to keep you mentally enslaved isn't violence. It's revolution. Moving right along. You know, for millions of years, we black people walked this earth alone. Before nations, before religions, before anybody else had ever dreamed of civilization. We were it. The blueprint, the origin, the first breath of humanity. The earth is billions of years old. Religion, 6,000. 6,000 years old. A baby lie crawling around pretending to be the truth. Religion wasn't born from light. It was forged in chains, built to control slaves, built to separate us from this black spirit that already knew God. We didn't need a book to find the creator. We only needed to look within. Then came the invader, pale and cold, a hybrid of human and Neanderthal, crawling out of the caves with envy in his eyes. He looked upon the sun people and decided to steal their life. He stole the land, he stole the people, he stole the gold, the rhythm, the story, and called it history. But what he really wrote was a cover-up, a lie to bury our brilliance beneath his myth. They said we were slaves, but we are the descendants of those who refused to die. They said they discovered, but we are the ones who birthed discovery. They said they bought God, but we are the original reflection of the divine. Every truth they hide becomes a truth bomb waiting to explode. Every lie they tell cracks under the weight of our memory. We are not lost. We are not broken. We are ancient and we are awakening. So hear this. Wake up. Reclaim. Remember. The lie is old, but we are eternal. This is Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. WHGE 95.3 FM, and Open Eye. And listen to this, and I know you heard this before. All right, it's been going around for a minute. Hear my own people say it, and it really pisses me off. If black lives really mattered, they'd stop shooting each other. 94% of all blacks shot are shot by blacks. You know what? I despise these kind of statements. They are not born a concern for black life, but a contempt for it. They are rhetorical weapons carefully crafted to shift blame away from systemic racism, white supremacy, and police brutality to redirect it toward the victims themselves. Let's be clear. The so-called black-on-black crime narrative is propaganda. It is meant to distract, to confuse, and dehumanize. People commit crimes where they live, against those they know and within the proximity of their communities. 95% of white murder victims are killed by other whites, but no one talks about white-on-white crime. That phrase doesn't even exist because it doesn't serve the purpose of demonizing white people. So when they throw black-on-black crime at you, understand what's really happening. It's a deflection from the violence of white supremacy, the state violence of police killings, the economic violence of redlining, job discrimination, the social violence of underfunded schools and mass incarceration, the psychological violence of centuries of propaganda that tells black people their own lives don't matter. And don't tell me I don't understand. I understand more deeply than you can imagine. Because my beloved sister was murdered. I live with that pain. So don't talk to me about violence in our community as if I don't know it personally. The difference is I understand why. Poverty breeds crime. Desperation breeds conflict. When a people are stripped of resources, flooded with drugs and guns, denied education, housing, and opportunity, violence becomes a symptom of oppression, not the cause of it. Our communities have been deliberately destabilized for generations. The same system that impoverished and marginalized us now points his finger and says, see, they can't control themselves. It's psychological warfare. What Neely Fuller said. If you don't understand global white supremacy, how it shapes economies, policing, education, and even perception, then everything else will confuse you. You'll think the problem is black people instead of the system that keeps this knee on our necks and blames us for struggling to breathe. And what happens when you get caught up in that system? Let me tell you about the sentence in the system. I want to thank Sister Tiana Russell Chisholm, one of my old part of my old par family. Yeah, that's her. All right. I see you, Abdullah, Sherry. Yeah. The system, the sentence in the system is from a brother that's presently incarcerated. It's his words. James Durham. He says, I'm James Durham. Father, son, brother, uncle. I spent 14 years inside Delaware's prison on a 33-year sentence, stretched long by a habitual offender law. No one was hurt, no one died, but a judge, not a jury, tacked years onto my life because of a prior strike, a marijuana seed found in a car, never lab tested. And today, Delaware has legalized possession for adults. The law moved on. My sentence didn't. It's Brother James Durham. This is just one man's story. It's a window into how racial disparity gets built, charge by charge, hearing by hearing, until people say, see, black folks commit more crimes. All right, let's get the history straight. From black codes to Jim Crow to the war on drugs and three-strike laws, policy has repeatedly widened the net around black communities. Habitual offender and mandatory minimum schemes are proven drivers of disparity. Prosecutors are more likely to file charges with mandatory minimums against black defendants. Those choices ripple into longer sentences and harsher plea leverage. In federal courts today, black men receive substantially longer sentences than similarly situated white men. The U.S. Sentencing Commission, their latest review, still finds sizable gaps. That's not folklore. That's the official scorekeeper, the U.S. Sentencing Commission. In Delaware, the picture matches the nation. And yes, Brother Durham is incarcerated in Delaware. Black people are about 22% of the state, but roughly 60% of those in state prison. State and court studies have documented significant racial disparities across charging, detention, and incarceration. And the court isn't a bias-free zone. Research on judges and prosecutors show implicit and explicit bias in charging, bail, and sentencing decisions precisely where officers of the court wield power over people's lives. Now about that 1350 talking point. It claims black Americans are 13% of the population but commit 50% of the violent crime. Here's why that soundbite collapses. First of all, it confuses arrests with offenses committed. The FBI itself warns against simplistic comparisons and rankings. Participation in national reporting has been incomplete during the switch to a new system which skews the numbers and people cherry pick online. Disparities in policing, charging, and clearance rates, check that out. Disparities in policing, charging, and clearance rates shape who gets arrested, not just who offends. Homicides with black victims, where the victim is black, are less likely to be cleared. Meaning, some perpetrators aren't even counted in arrest tallies. That distorts any arrest-based claim about who commits crime. The myth ignores age structure, segregation, concentrated poverty, and exposure to policing, all of which criminologists show drive where arrests happen. The Council on Criminal Justice and others caution, crime trends are complex, sound bites misleading. That's right, Keith. 14-year-old children can be charged as grown-ups. It's ridiculous. So when a Delaware judge extends decades based on an untested marijuana seed, and the state later legalized marijuana, that's not justice evolving, that's justice lagging. Habitual offender laws like Statute 4214 allow max penalties up to life. And while judges can find the fact of prior convictions, they're still bound by constitutional limits that were meant to protect the jury's role. We should be narrowing these enhancements, not using them to multiply time served. And here's the call to action. Make cannabis reforms retroactive, especially for nonviolent priors. Curb habitual offender enhancements that outstrip the harm. Audit charging and plea patterns for racial bias publicly. fund independent conviction review, and resentencing for people like Brother James Durham. Because the data say the system punishes black defendants more harshly. The data says so. And the data says that simple slogans about who commits crime are false. The data says so. We owe the truth our voices, and we owe our neighbors their time back. This is The Open Eye. I'm Patrice Gibbs. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. All right. Give you some history here. I just like to share some history. It's important that we know these things. I'm going to tell you about the black pioneers who built America's paramedic system. Many of us didn't know. America loves to celebrate its heroes. We honor firefighters, police officers, doctors, and soldiers. Yet, one of the greatest stories of heroism in modern medical history had been hidden in plain sight. Few people know that the entire paramedic system, the very framework that saves countless lives every day, was pioneered by a group of black men in Pittsburgh. They called themselves Freedom House Ambulance Service. And they didn't just make history, they rewrote it. Before Freedom House, there was chaos. In 1967, emergency medical care in America was shockingly primitive, especially in black neighborhoods. If you collapsed in the street, there was no guarantee anyone trained would come to your aid. In many cases, a police car or even a local funeral home was dispatched to transport the sick or injured. There were no trained emergency technicians, no standardized medical procedures, no sense of urgency rooted in science or compassion. To put it bluntly, if you lived in a poor or black neighborhood and needed emergency care, your odds of survival were slim. That's when a group of determined black men decided enough was enough. See, the things we do when we get to the height of our discontent. The birth of Freedom House, founded in Pittsburgh's Hill District. Freedom House Ambulance Service emerged from a collaboration between community leaders, physicians, and activists who saw the need for real professional emergency care. These men weren't content to wait for the city to care. They trained themselves in the same advanced medical skills used in hospitals, skills that didn't yet exist in the field. They learned CPR, defibrillation, airway management, trauma stabilization, and other techniques that would later define paramedic training nationwide. In an era when most ambulance drivers had no medical training whatsoever, these men became the first true paramedics in America. And they didn't just perform, they excelled, setting the standard for the nation. Freedom House answered thousands of calls each year. They treated gunshot victims, stabilized heart attack patients, delivered babies on sidewalks, and saved lives in homes. They saved lives on the street and in alleys all across Pittsburgh. They responded with professionalism, precision, and compassion, often in the very neighborhoods where other services refused to go. Their impact was immediate and undeniable. Medical experts from around the country began to take notice. Freedom House became a national model for emergency response, proving that properly trained paramedics could deliver hospital-level care on the street. What they created became the foundation for the modern emergency medical services we know as EMS that we rely on now. But as their reputation grew, so did resentment. By 1975, just 8 years after their founding, the city of Pittsburgh abruptly shut Freedom House down. The program was replaced by a new, mostly white paramedic corps. There was no ceremony, no recognition, no acknowledgement that these black men have built the system from scratch. Their contribution was quietly erased from public memory. Freedom House was buried not because they failed, but because they succeeded too well. They had proven that black men, given the opportunity, could outperform expectations, save lives, and transform public health systems. In a nation still deeply uncomfortable with that truth, their story was pushed aside. It's a legacy that cannot be erased. Today, every time an ambulance speeds through the streets, lights flashing and sirens blaring, it carries the unseen legacy of Freedom House. Their spirit lives in every EMT, every paramedic, every life saved through rapid, skilled intervention. Freedom House showed us that black excellence is not just about breaking barriers, it's about saving lives while doing it. They took a desperate community need and turned it into a national movement. Their names may not appear in most textbooks, but their fingerprints are all over America's emergency response system. The next time you see an ambulance, remember who set the standard. Remember Freedom House Ambulance Service, the black men who built America's paramedic system, even when the nation tried to pretend they didn't. WHGE 95.3 FM. This is The Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM. Patrice Gibbs here, your third eye optometrist on Open Eye. One of the most important institutions we have in our history, okay, is the Black Church. Hey, Sister Sherry, listen up. The engineering of a silenced church. This is not by happenstance. This was engineered. You're around my age, you notice the difference. Because there was a time when the black church stood as a fortress of liberation. A theology rooted in freedom, resistance, and community building. It was the drumbeat of the movement, the sanctuary of the oppressed, the headquarters of hope. But when people started getting money, When the offering plate got heavier, the message got lighter. When the government started passing out grants, the gospel of liberation turned into a gospel of compliance. The fire that once roared from the pulpit cooled into a polite whisper, because you can't shout truth to power when power signs your checks. Now we got prosperity preaching, where salvation is measured by square footage and credit scores, where seed offerings replace community organizing and financial statements are required for membership. When Deacon Chickenfoot struts through the church parking lot in a custom tailor suit and needs a police escort just to make the deposit at the bank. The sacred has been monetized, the message corporatized, and the movement neutralized. What was once the voice of the voiceless has become the echo chamber of capitalism and a choir robe. But make no mistake, this didn't happen by chance. It was designed, because liberated people can't be controlled, but a comfortable one can. So what's happened is, many of our people, especially those that are woke, have moved away from this comfort. You look back in our past to who we were before. And those that can't understand accuse us of being some kind of devils or something. Accuse African spirituality of being polytheistic religion. We worship many gods. We pray to our ancestors, and they do this without looking at what they're involved in. Praying to prophets and saints and Mother Mary. One of the greatest misconceptions about African spirituality is the belief that our ancestors worship many gods. That's a distortion, a misunderstanding born from outsiders trying to define what they never understood. The truth is this: African spirituality has always recognized one supreme creative force, the source of all things. The energy that animates. The energy that animates the universe. Different cultures gave this source many names. Oludumare in Yoruba, Naami in Akan, Ra or Atum in Kemet. But all point to one creator, one divine essence that flows through everything. The so-called multiple gods are not rivals to that creator. They are manifestations, expressions of divine energy. The countless faces through which the creator interacts with the world, just as sunlight breaks into a spectrum of colors. The one divine light expresses itself through countless forces of nature, each with a unique vibration and responsibility. These sacred forces are called Neteru in Kemet, the principles of cosmic order and balance. Orishas in Yoruba, the divine intermediaries who embody aspects of nature and human life. Obosan in Akan, spiritual entities that connect the human realm to the creator. Each represents a spiritual current, a law of existence. The thunder, the river, the harvest, the wind, the heartbeat of life itself. African spirituality, then, is not polytheistic confusion. is divine science. An understanding that God is too vast to be limited to a single image or concept. It teaches that the Creator's power flows through everything. The trees, the water, the fire, the breath, the ancestors. And to honor these forces is to honor the one who made them. Okay. And see, we understand what a weapon religion is. So who really needs saving? So let me get this straight. Your religion is that murder, rape, torture, enslaved, abused, cursed, pillaged, persecuted, sacrificed, harassed, ramaged, terrorized, swindled, exploited, corrupted, and lied their way across continents. And somehow, I'm the one going to hell because I don't believe in your doctrine or domination. You kidding? You burn people alive for daring to think freely. You drown nations in blood just to plant a flag and call it holy. You took the cross and turned it into a sword. You took the Bible and turned it into a whip. You built empires in the name of the Prince of Peace and justified genocide with the name of God on your lips. You enslaved bodies while claiming to save souls. You erased cultures and called it civilization. You murdered the innocent and called it divine justice. You stole the land, the language, the labor, and then the story. You rewrote history and told the world it was revelation. You colonized minds as thoroughly as you colonized nations. You made hell sound like rebellion and heaven sound like obedience. And now, after all the wars, the inquisitions, the crusades, the witch hunts, the slave ships, after blessing every empire and baptizing every bullet, you still point your finger and tell me that I'm lost. That I'm damned because I refuse to kneel before the same altar that sanctified our suffering. You built your heaven. You built your heaven with the bones of the conquered, and your hell for those who remember. You sold salvation like a weapon and used fear as your missionary. If believing means accepting the lie, if faith means ignoring the blood, if salvation requires silence, then disbelief is not rebellion, it's redemption. Because maybe hell isn't a pit of fire beneath us. Maybe it's the centuries of horror done in his name. Maybe the real blasphemy isn't doubt, but blind devotion to a lie that conquered the world. So no, I'm not afraid of your hell. I already seen it. In history books and slave ships, in the ashes of the holy wars. And I refuse to bow to it. Tell me again, who really needs saving? I'm Patrice Gibbs. WHGE 95.3 FM. This is The Open Eye. No, I'm not finished. No, I'm not finished. I'll tell you about Arius the Libyan. Y'all know what I mean when I say ish. Here, let me turn the mic off here so I don't say this over the air. I mean shit. All right. Back on there. I'm going to tell you about Arius the Libyan. The setting is the year 325 Common Era, which we call AD, call it Common Era now. The marble hall of the Council of Nicaea hums with argument. Roman bishops in fine robes debate the nature of divinity, while soldiers guard the doors. This is at the Council of Nicaea. At the edge of the assembly, Arius of Libya rises. Dark-skinned, dark-robed, eyes sharp, voice steady as thunder. Arius told him. Arius said, Y'all understand we're not actually supposed to believe this ish. Y'all understand that, right? Okay. You can't vote on divinity like it's a grain tax. You can't legislate the breath of the Almighty. Yet here we sit, men of robes and rings, deciding who God loves, who he looks like, and what he meant to say. Arius. He went on. Rome kills prophets, then paints halos over the corpse. You call it faith, I call it politics and priest clothing. Before you crown this man God, he walked barefoot among fishermen. He broke bread with the poor, not emperors. He washed feet. Now you argue which throne he sits on. You all want a savior that blesses empire, not the one who overturned your tables. You gather here to carve holiness into something marketable, to trade truth for uniformity, to chain revelation to the convenience of power. I come from Cyrene, where the desert meets the sea. We still remember the Christ who whispered revolution, not submission. The Christ who told slaves they were divine, not disposable. The Christ who didn't need Constantine's sword to prove his worth. But y'all, you want an empire that prays. You want the world kneeling to Rome, not to righteousness. And so you edit the scriptures, bury the gospels that don't fit your brand, and call the silence of truth heresy. So let me speak again. Y'all understand we're not actually supposed to believe this ish, right? Because if this is the new gospel, then it ain't salvation you selling, it's obedience. Arius stepped back, the chamber murmurs, the soldiers glanced at Constantine. The ink of doctrine dries, sealing centuries of silence. The statement attributed to Arius the Libyan is more than satire, it's revelation. It exposes a universal truth. Power will always rewrite spirituality to serve itself. The first Council of Nicaea wasn't merely a theological meeting. It was the branding of belief. The branding of belief. Emperor Constantine understood that religion, when unified under the empire stamp, could pacify rebellion, sanctify conquest, and bind citizens to imperial order through divine authority. Christianity, once the faith of the oppressed, became the religion of the throne. The essence of Arius' outburst, we are not supposed to believe this ish, is the voice of conscious resistance. It's the moment when someone inside the machinery of empire recognizes the lie. That faith has been domesticated, stripped of its radical edge, and turned into propaganda. This isn't confined to antiquity. That's why I bring it up. Because every generation faces its own Council of Nicaea, a moment when truth is debated, edited, and weaponized. Governments decide what version of history we're allowed to believe. Corporations package morality in ad campaigns and brand slogans. Religious leaders trade liberation theology for prosperity gospel. Media turns suffering into spectacle and rebellion in entertainment. And through it all, the modern areas, the conscious, the woke, the uncolonized mind keeps asking, y'all understand we're not actually supposed to believe this issue, right? You understand that? It's the same question black scholars asked when colonizers told us our history began in chains. It's the same question truth tellers ask when politicians speak peace with blood on their hands. It's the same question the prophets, poets, and revolutionaries have asked across time. Who benefits from the story being told? Faith stripped of inquiry becomes obedience. Belief without questioning becomes bondage. And just as in Nicaea, the world still confuses conformity with truth. If Arius the Libyan stood among us today, he wouldn't be whispering in the back of a Roman hall. He'd be on social media, on street corners, in classrooms, in pulpits, still saying, you understand we are not supposed to believe this ish, right? Because truth doesn't need permission to exist. It just needs a voice brave enough to say it out loud. You understand we are not supposed to believe this issue, right? WHGE 95.3 FM, the Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM with Open Eye. Tell your friends. Tell them to tune in. You might learn something. That's right. All right, all right. You ever notice how every politician tells young people, get an education? They say it's the key to success, the key to freedom, the key to the so-called American dream. But the key don't work the same in every country. And let me show you what I mean. And student asks, you keep telling me how important it is to get an education, but it's really expensive. Can I get some help? Germany responds, all colleges tuition free. In Finland, we welcome anyone in the world to get in any level of education and no charge. Denmark, don't be silly. College doesn't cost you a thing. Matter of fact, we'll give you about $900 a month for living expenses for 6 years. The United States, this is America. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. We'll loan you the money at 10 times the interest rate we charge banks. If you can't pay, we'll garnish your check. And you go bankrupt, you still owe us. Oh, and textbooks aren't included. See, this isn't just about getting a degree. It's about who gets the chance to dream without debt. In countries that value people, not profits, education is a right. In America, it's a business. We're the only nation that can spend billions on bombs and still tell teachers to buy their own classroom supply. Wow. We say education is the key, but here, that door comes with a toll booth. The American dream has got a cover charge, baby. We replace chains with contracts and the auction block with Sally Mae. Students graduate not with opportunity, but with obligation, working not to build their future, but to pay for their past. Meanwhile, the same politicians who went to school for free on government grants now tell young people to live within their means. Hypocrisy in cap and gown. America doesn't have a student loan crisis. It has a greed crisis. It has a values crisis. Because if education is truly the path to progress, why is it the only road in America that starts with a toll booth? That's right. Hey. And we understand it. And why? Because Ronald Reagan made roast in hell, made the devil sodomize him with a pitchfork, decided that education was not a right, it was a privilege, and it was a privilege that should be denied to black people. And it's from Tony Brown. Because one of the things that comes up during these talks about education, especially from white supremacists, why do we have black colleges? Why do we still need black colleges? We had black colleges for the same reason Jews have yeshiva and brandies. For the same reason Catholics have Holy Cross and Notre Dame. For the same reason Mormons have an entire damn state called Utah, and no, they have no intention of giving it back. People don't seem to understand. We can't be anything but black. And there ain't nothing wrong with that. We didn't build black colleges because we don't like white people. We built them because white America refused to educate us because they don't like us. Because when doors slammed shut, we created our own. Schools that nurtured intellect, spirit, and survival. Now we live in what they call a culturally pluralistic society. But desegregation does not mean erasing who we are. It means respect for everyone and every group. The right for a black student to attend any university, the right for a white student to attend a black one, and they do. That's equality of movement. It's not an excuse for cultural extinction. So, boy, we can use all the words, integrate, merge, blend, but we still be black. And we who are black, we've decided we're not going to let anybody destroy our colleges because we cannot survive in America without them. Only 20% of black students attend HBCUs. 80% actually go to predominantly white schools. But here's the truth. 7 out of 10 black students at HBCUs graduate. 7 out of 10 at white universities do not. And when it comes to graduate programs, 3 out of 4 advanced degrees earned by black students go to those who came from black colleges. 1 out of every 250 black athletes at a white university, 1 out of 250 black athletes at a white university graduates. The University of Georgia had graduated just 6 black athletes from 1971 to 1984. 6 in 15 years. We're not finishing at white colleges. And if we lose ours, we lose our future, our leadership, our legacy. We have black colleges because we love ourselves, because we know our value, and because history taught us no one else will preserve it for us. From Howard to Spelman, from Hampton to Delaware State, our colleges are not just schools. They're lifelines, and we're not giving them up. WHGE 95.3 FM, Dove and I. All right, I hear you, Keith. Hey, Vaughn, you're going to dig this, brother. WHGE 95.3 FM. Oh! So now you care about federal funding, huh? Oh, you care about that now. That's interesting. Let's talk about California. The state everybody loves to roast, but nobody can live without. Can't live without California? No. See, while folks in red states rage about liberal elites and big government, California quietly cuts the check that keeps their towns moving. Facts. California pays over $80 billion more in federal taxes than it gets back. That's not generosity. That's subsidizing dysfunction. Meanwhile, Kentucky gets $3.35 for every dollar it pays. Mississippi double dipping in federal aid. West Virginia, Alabama, Arkansas, they inhaling federal cash like it's oxygen. And these are the same states screaming about handouts and socialism. Oh, you hate big government? Go, get the money back. Oh, no, you cashed the checks, built the roads, funded the hospitals, subsidized the farmers. Then hop on Facebook to lecture California about freedom. That's like borrowing your neighbor's Wi-Fi and calling them lazy. Damn. And now Trump wants to punish California's universities because students protesting. Well, Gavin Newsom fired back. And here's what he said. Maybe we need to stop sending our taxes to D.C. And honestly, do it. Pull the plug. Let's see who survives. Because if California stops sending money, red states collapse in a month. Disaster relief, gone. Highway funding, gone. Medicaid expansion never existed. Defund them freeloaders. Let's see who really believes in capitalism or socialism. And you don't get to scream personal responsibility while living off of somebody else's wallet. You're not self-made. You're California made. And that goddamn rent is due. Yeah. Meanwhile, the orange disaster running around, Mr. Wannabe Dictator. I don't know. I hope you're aware of what's going on in Chicago. But they ain't just taking it. I seen one of those, no, actually that was Portland. Well, a lot of these other states ain't taking any, Portland, Oregon, where they were protesting, and these ICE agents come in their vehicle and they're going to run the protesters down. The Portland police officers said, you can't go this way. If you do, we gonna lock your ass up, and we don't care if you ICE or whoever you are. Chicago lined up there. What do you do with ICE when it snows and you get that freezing rain on the ground? You put some salt on it. Chicago lined up their salt trucks around ICE. Didn't let them move. Now a judge has issued a restraining order on National Guard deployments in Chicago. But of course the orange disaster just keeps running into legal roadblocks and just keeps trying to get it overturned. This week alone, federal judges have blocked his attempt to send the National Guard into Portland and place restrictions on ICE ability to make arrests in Chicago without a warrant. But they just rolling up on people and snatching them off the street. No warrant, not identifying themselves. Now I've seen some of these young people in Chicago start shooting. I don't want them to do that because I don't want to give them the excuse to declare martial law. Okay? According to Politico, U.S. District Judge April Perry issued a restraining order barring the National Guard from carrying out the directives of the Trump regime, which deployed guards to Chicago. Why did Judge Perry issue this restraining order? Well, for the same reason Trump was blocked from weaponizing the military against Portland. Everyone with half a brain knows Trump is a flat-out lying about these cities being war zones, and ICE facilitates being under siege. She described the narrative of violence as exaggerated and pointed to the use of tear gas and military-style tactics against mostly peaceful demonstrators. A group she noted was never more than a few hundred strong. And I saw, I think it was a priest, Catholic priest or something, right? And he was out there protesting, and one of those ICE thugs shot him in the head with some of them rubber bullets. One of them rubber bullets right in the head. You could see his smoke. Oh, I got something for you, though. Yeah, I got something for you with your illegal ass. Yeah. And see, you got, what's her name? Bundy. Yeah. These people are crazy. All right. She's the former attorney general in Florida. Damn. No wonder she's crazy. And, of course, a Trump ally. And this husband then got up and said, we're going to destroy Antifa from top to bottom, just like we did with the cartels. That's not campaign talk. That's not tough on crime rhetoric. That's a sitting public official calling for American citizens to be treated like drug lords simply because of their political beliefs. And let's be clear about what Antifa actually means. It's not a single organization. It's not a cartel. It's not a registered group with leadership, funding, and a mission statement. It's a broad term used to describe anyone who stands against fascism. So when she says destroy Antifa, she's not talking about terrorists. She's talking about dissenters. She's talking about people who protest authoritarianism. And that's the danger. She's talking about American citizens. And this is the language of authoritarian regimes. This is how they do it, step by step. First, redefine protests as extremism. Then label dissenters as threats to national security. Then justify violence, surveillance, and arrest in the name of safety. It sound familiar? It should, because every regime that crushed democracy began with that same goddamn formula. silence the critics, label them enemies, and use state power to make it legal. And here's the twist. It's not even subtle. Not anymore. The Department of Justice becomes a political weapon when peaceful protesters can be branded as cartel members. That's not law enforcement. That's tyranny with a legal brief. And ask yourself, if they can call anti-fascists terrorists, who's next? Environmental activists, journalists, teachers, you? When the state decides what beliefs are legal, democracy dies in daylight. And the people cheering it on don't realize once you normalize political persecution, eventually it comes for everyone. So don't shrug this off as just another political sound bite. This is the testing ground for a new level of repression. And it's being normalized on camera. If you believe in due process, in free speech, and the right to disagree, then you should be standing up right now, because silence is consent. They said we're coming for Antifa. But what they really mean is they're coming for accountability. And that's why we got to fight back with truth, with awareness, and with unity. Because when the people forget what freedom sounds like, all that's left is the sound of boots. See, at the end of this administration, is I want you to understand, ICE, all right? The people, the administration's term could turn on the very people enforcing its orders. If you wear the badge, carry the weapon, and stand at the checkpoint, you need to hear this. Because when the cameras stop rolling and the applause fades, the law will still be waiting. And ignorance will not save you. Let's start with U.S. Code 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. That's the federal statute that makes it a crime for anyone acting under government authority to willfully violate someone's constitutional rights. That means cops, ICE agents, National Guards, all of you fools. And yes, that includes undocumented migrants. So when we see footage of people being slammed to the ground, tased, pepper sprayed, or dragged off without due process, that's not law and order, that's criminal liability, and we coming for your ass as soon as this administration is over or put out of power. That excuse, I was just following orders, is not going to wash. Because the moment you act outside the law, you on your own. And you think the president can pardon me? Think again. You see, some of y'all are going to be arrested right soon in these states. Because that pardon only covers federal crimes, and your ass going to jail in Illinois, in Portland, Oregon. Though you cover your face, remove your plates, drive unmarked cars, or refuse to identify yourself, you're committing a felony in many states. Families can sue you personally. They can take your home, your pension, your savings. Intent doesn't matter. Orders don't matter. The law does. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. WHGE 95.3 FM, The Open Eye. All right, all right. Come around to the close here. And expanded something that I had talked about before. What's wrong with y'all? Y'all know who I'm talking about. Okay. Yeah, who said lock them up? Yeah, you're going to find out who gets locked up. And a whole lot of lawyers better worry about being disbarred. As comments from Brother Vaughn and Brother Keith. Yeah. All right, let me tell y'all something and close out here. The earth is alive. It's not a rock, not a resource, not a thing to be owned. It's alive. Breathing, pulsing, turning into rhythm with the cosmos. Every forest reborn after fire. Every tide that swallows the shoreline. Every quake, every flood, every storm that breaks man's illusion of control. That's not chaos, that's correction. You think it's random? No, that's response. Because like all living things, Earth defends herself. When her balance is threatened, she shifts. When she's poisoned, she purges. When she's wounded, she heals. When a body gets sick, the fever burns the infection out. When humanity becomes that infection, the planet raises her temperature too. She floods to cleanse. She quakes to reset. She storms to remind. She breathes hard because she's tired of pretending she don't feel pain. Oh, they scared. Oh, they terrified. Because deep down they know. You can't choke your mother and expect her to cradle you still. You can't strip her forests, poison her rivers, drill into her bones and not expect her to react. The earth ain't dying. We might be. Because she's not collapsing. She's correcting. And correction doesn't always come quiet. That's why they're scared. Because earth don't whisper, she roars. That's right. She roars. WHGE. Yeah, this clown want to call me. The open eye. All right. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for your comments, contributions, what have you. I hope you learned something, because I learned something before I came in here. Yes, indeed. Destiny determines who enters your life, but you decide who stays. Therefore, value those who value you, and don't treat those as a priority who treat you as an option. This has been Open Eye on WHGE 95.3 FM. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Thanks for joining us. All right. Thank you for joining us. And as I always tell you, pay attention. Global African supremacy is coming. That's word. They have the youngest population on the planet. They're the future. It might be time to get your passport. I'm Patrice Gibbs. Peace.